No problem. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so tonight I have several things I want to talk about. And one of the comments, or several of the comments, I know you guys are nervous about writing IEPs. Don't be. You should have absolutely no background and no experience with them at this point. That's what part of this class is for, is to learn how to do that. And I was, when we were chatting earlier, I said, you guys are going to be my guinea pig group. Always before in this class, I've had people write their IEPs individually, but that's not the way the real world works. When you do an IEP, it's a team process. So I'm going to put you in pairs to write the IEP because two heads are always better than one. You both get the same grade, and you'll submit it. One person will submit it, and then the grade will go to both of you. So you're going to sign up tonight to begin your IEPs as a group. And there's no rhyme or reason for how or who you sign up with. It's just a partner. So it's one other person. And you're going to go to, I'm going to share my screen, maybe. Okay, are you looking at, looks like a Blackboard page? Okay. And if, I forget to share or I forget to unshare, so tell me. Okay, so on mine, you go down the left-hand side, and my IEP group project is here. Yours may be further to the bottom because I can move mine around like by doing this. See, I can drag it, so I put it where I want it. Anyway, you're going to go to IEP group project, and then you self-enroll. Like, I think I've opened. I'm not real sure how you guys do this because I can only see how I do it. Anyway, you're going to enroll in those groups. So that's one of the things that you need to do tonight when you get done, or before we get done, is just say, hey, you want to work together? And if we run out of time, because I have to be off here at 20 after 6, if we run out of time, I'll just email me and I'll make a list and I'll enroll you if we need to. Okay? So that's part of what I wanted to make sure that you understood for tonight, is that IEPs are group projects. Other thing I want to talk about, I'm going to, just because of time, and I'm not sure how the time's going to play out, because I've never had time restrictions of having another class coming in right after finishing one. I'm going to go through a sample of an IEP with you and talk about it a little bit in some of the parts so that you have a better idea of what we're talking about and what it looks like. This is what the Keystone Learning Service, this is WebKids, is what this is. And different schools had paid WebKids to modify different portions of it because they wanted it in a certain way. But all IEPs contain the same basic information because there's legal requirements. So we're just going to talk a little bit, and I'm only going to go through the part that you need to have done for next time tonight. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's too much. Anyway, you have to put the kid's legal name in, and when you do it on here, highlight it and then type in there. Otherwise, it's going to goose up the spacing. I mean, because it's just a Word document. So just highlight and then type in it, okay? Okay, when you're doing a real IEP, every student in the state of Kansas that's in school has what they call a KIDS ID. It's a Kansas Identifier System or something like that, identification system maybe. And if you don't have that number, ask your school secretary because they'll have it. Or look on a previous IEP of theirs, or your school psychologist will have it. But anyway, that's the identifying number that you need to have on their IEP. We used to use Social Security's for identification for everything. And then they said Social Security's weren't a good thing because people, that's tied to employment and money and all that later on. So they went to this identification system. But that's the state's tracking system for these kids. And they use it all the way through the time that they age out of school or graduate. Okay, so then the next thing that you need, is this big enough that you can see it? Would it be better if I made it a little bit bigger? Does that help? Do you need it bigger? A little bit more? That better? Okay, and I'll load this in, or send it in part of the announcement through the so that you have access to it. Okay, so if the parents live together, even though it says first parent, you put the parents' names on the same line. Like instead of Mr. and Mrs. John Smith, you would say John and Shirley Smith. So you put both of the parents' names. If they don't live together, if they have joint custody, it doesn't matter which one goes where, but they both need to be there and their addresses. Okay, and you know, sometimes you have a parent that's out of state or that, you know, that they still have rights to their child, but you don't have an address, then you just write address unknown if you can't get it from the parent. Okay. Okay. When students are evaluated and placed in special education programs, that's called an initial evaluation when they're tested the first time. By law, every 3 years they have to have a reevaluation, and that's called the comprehensive evaluation. And see, I kind of goofed up the spacing on this one too. It looks goofy, but I can get it fixed back up. Anyway, so on the IEPs that you're going to write based on the case studies that are on Blackboard, you don't have a comp evaluation date, so just ignore it. But in real life, on real IEPs, there has to be one done every 3 years. And that's when the school psychologist does some additional testing. Okay. An IEP is good for 1 calendar year, for 12 months. So the IEP meeting right here is the date that you're actually doing the meeting. All right. And then the initiation date, and sometimes the initiation date is not the same as the date of the IEP meeting. Parts of it can be, and parts of it might be different. You might have 2 different initiation dates. Like for a 8th grader that's going to high school, if I write the IEP, because you know they're good for a calendar year, if I write the IEP in March, and at the middle school they have classes that are 42 minutes long, but the high school has classes that are 50 minutes long, that's a significant enough difference that I have to write 2 different implementation dates. Okay, just so you know that. And so then the participants who's actually, oh, sorry, we need to talk about the neighborhood school. The state of Kansas wants to make sure that students are educated with their peers. And so if they're being bused, because sometimes kids are bused out of district or bused to a different school, especially if they are severely disabled. Like students that are blind, sometimes students in Kansas that are blind will go to Kansas City School for the Blind or Kansas City School for the. So their neighborhood school is the school that they would go to if they did not have a disability. And then what building are they actually attending? Most often that's the same. Only with severe extreme cases is it different. And then who's at the meeting? Their name, their position, and then the date. Okay. Okay, there are 4 required people at an IEP, and that's the only ones I want on these IEPs that you're writing. Okay. It's the parent or parents, either way. Okay. And if it's just the mom, and sometimes it's just the mom that shows up or just the dad, so you write mother or father or whatever. Okay. A general education teacher has to be present. If you're talking about 7th grade all the way through high school, you might have multiple general education teachers because there's an English teacher, a science teacher, social studies, math, PE. I mean, you invite all of them to the meeting, and they can all be there. Okay. If it is a 1st grader and you're writing your IEP at the end of the 1st grade year, you might want to include a 2nd grade teacher. Right. But since we're writing ours in the summer, we're pretending like this is September or something. I only want 1 general education teacher's name on there. Okay, for this practice this summer. So you have the parents, general education teacher, the special education teacher has to be there, and the local education agency authority, which is either the principal or assistant principal or whoever he designates to sign off on the IEP. He or she designates. If it's a significant student that, I mean, that has really significant disability, and you're talking about special transportation or things that are going to cost extra money, you need to, it's best to have the principal there because they're the ones that are agreeing, once they, that's an agreement to pay for those services. So if it's something that's anything like that, you need to make sure ahead of time that you contact your principal and discuss that with them so that they are not blindsided during that meeting. Okay? Okay. And then there's a formal notice about the legalities, and I'm just going to kind of scroll through some of this a little bit till we get to the part that you need to do. Okay. Hearing, vision, or health, hearing, and vision. Okay, and I have it written in here. Hearing screening is done every 3 years by law. So if you have a hearing screening in June of 2019, your next one would be when, Sarah? Sarah Fraser? Turn on your mic.
Sorry, I muted it because my dogs are going crazy upstairs.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, if you have a hearing screening in June of, say, June the 10th of 2019, when would your next hearing screening, the follow-up date be?
It would be in 2021, June of 2021.
Yep. Okay.
Said vision, right?
And no, that's for, no, for hearing would be every 3, so 19, 20, 21, 22.
22. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. And I think it's, and then vision is every other year, so it would be 2021. And I think the reason is children's eyes and ears, children's eyes change more frequently than does their hearing. It's usually something major that would create a hearing loss. Other than like, sometimes you'll find out they have colds or allergies that affect their hearing, and so you just write seasonal problems. Okay, so and on the results, like you're going to get those from your school nurse, unless parents have taken them to an eye doctor. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm hearing. You're going to get those results from school nurse because very few students have ever had their hearing checked outside of school, especially for somebody with a mild incident disability. And then vision, if the parents say, let's say the child's eyes were checked at school in September of 2018, and the parent says, oh, we went to the eye doctor last March, you know. Well, that's the most recent date, so put the date that the parents gave you, and you would write the eye doctor's name in there, and then what the results were, whether they were 2020 or whatever. Okay, and then the next thing that you fill in is medication. And when students take medications, they might be things like, oh, they might take allergy medications, you know, seasonally. They might have asthma and use an inhaler. There are kids that take anti-anxiety medication. And, you know, and if you have students, I know that this program is for high incidence disabilities, but there are very few classrooms that are just high incidence disabilities. It's typically whatever walks in the door is who you get to teach. So whatever medications they take is what you're going to list there. And you try to, like, if they're prescribed through something like Area Mental Health or Compass Behavioral Systems, or, you know, try to get that information that the neurologist that they went to prescribe, and try to get their name, prescribe this medication for seizures. You know, try to make it as informative as you can. The adaptive physical education is because students that have motor problems, like, you know, they can't run, they have physical needs that would be different. So you would put a statement in there. And on this form, I would just highlight like that, like the yes or the no. Or circle it if you want to, however you want to do it, okay? Okay, then healthcare plans are on this section. Healthcare plans are typical for students that use inhalers. You need a healthcare plan. For kids that have seizures, you need a plan for how you work with a seizure. Like some students that have seizures, have the seizures so, they're so hard that They have to have a shot within so many minutes to take them out of that seizure. So they'll need a health care plan for that. We've got students in the schools that have feeding tubes. The only health care plans I ever had was for students that had seizures. Or sometimes, I take that back. I had one for a student that was a diabetic that needed to be able to have snacks during the day. Okay. Okay, and then under each one of these sections, there's asking for a strength. What is it that the student can do well? And, for a kiddo that wears glasses, you could say, wears his glasses daily. That's a strength without being reminded. Or make sure his glasses are clean. That's, another thing they can do. And sometimes the strengths that students have, it's relative because they have so many different things that they going on with their system. So what can you say that's positive about it? And then what needs do they have? Like, for little kids that wear glasses, do their parents want you to check to make sure they have their glasses on? Do their parents want you to make sure their glasses are clean? Do the parents want you to make sure that their glasses go in their school bag to go home? Okay. And so then current performance on here, I typically write a statement if it's no big deal, if the student that doesn't have any vision or hearing problems other than like wearing glasses, no health problems, I say vision, hearing, nor health impact the student's performance in the general education setting. Just to say something like that. But don't leave it, if you leave it blank, then they think you forgot to answer it. So you put something in there. Okay. So this student, because they can see and hear and they have no health problems, then none of these things apply to them. Okay, so the next part of the IEP is motor. And these are all the parts that you're going to do that's going to be due in 2 weeks. Okay, with your partner. Okay. So motor, does the student need any special training for motor? Like if they're using a walker or a wheelchair, or a standard for like a student that has spina bifida, do they need any special motor skills or motor equipment? And then, so I always try to, and the way this is written, the positives come first. I always try to start with positive statements because it makes the parents realize you appreciate what their child can do and the good qualities that they have. So how do their motor skills compare to their peers? Like, do they use motor skills in PE? Or, do they use their motor skills on the playground? They use fine motor skills like when they're cutting and writing, or when they're using a keyboard or an iPad. They don't have any trouble with the motor skills. And sometimes, like on the needs, there might not be any needs. So there would be, you write a sentence and say, there are no needs and no concerns in this area. Current performance would be motor skills are commensurate with their peers, or something to that effect, or similar to their peers. The impact, there would be no impact. So motor skills do not affect child's education. And then you would leave all of this blank. And then social emotional. Okay. So when you look at, does the student have behavior problems is what this is basically for. So you could, the needs they have, like, are they friendly? Do they have different groups of friends that they visit with? Like, do they play with different groups during recess? If it's little kids, do they have one set of friends that they play soccer with at recess and a different set of friends that they play on the swings with? Or do they visit with kids in the classroom? Do they have different buddies that they like to work with? Are they well liked by their peers? Do they have one special friend? All of those are positive statements that you can make in that strengths area. And their needs, do they need anything special, any training for social emotional skills, or are they just like typical other kids? You could say there are no needs. Their current performance, their social skills are comparable to their peers. And so there would be no impact. I'll tell you about that later. I just changed my mind. Okay. So then we're talking about communication. This is talking about oral communication, not about writing. Okay. Am I going too fast? Yes, no, maybe? Is it okay? Okay. So the things that you look at on communication, do they need services for communication, which would be like speech therapy, speech and language therapy? Are they limited English students? Do they have special communication needs? For kids that are pretty significant, they might use that. Have you heard of PECS system? Are you familiar with that? PECS, the picture exchange communication system. You know, some kids, that's where you would talk about PECS if they were using it. Is it right here? If they had speech and language therapy, the speech and language therapist is going to fill out this part a lot more than what you would. But if they have no problems as far as communicating, then you might say, you know, their strengths might be, you know, the student communicates very similar to his peers. Their performance, can they make their needs and wants known? You would, you know, a sentence about that. Or older students, and you'll see this with like 6th graders, sometimes 5th graders up. They have a set of language, it's like a language register where they include slang and maybe a few foul words and stuff that they use with their buddies. And you can hear it like when they're just talking like on the playground or something. But when they're talking to adults or they're in the school setting, they change that. Those are called language registers. And so they may have different language registers depending on the group they're speaking with. And that's a good thing. You know, that's a skill where they've learned to discriminate what they're doing and where they're doing it. Probably wouldn't have any services there if it's just a typical kid. Okay, general intelligence. This is a big, it looks like a little area, but it's a big part of an IEP. If you don't mark yes for a kid with high incidence, there's no reason for them to have special education services. They have cognitive abilities that are impacted that need to be addressed through special education services. So you are always going to mark yes on this, if I can make it click. Well, I can't right now. When I'm doing, when I'm sharing my screen and I have it in review mode, not everything works like it does when it's out of review, off the share. So anyway, you're going to mark yes on that. And then how is that addressed? What is it about that student and about their education that's special? And the things that you could write about in there, you could talk about the accommodations they're going to get. You can talk about the amount of services they're getting or the goal areas that they're receiving. When it's a 3-year reevaluation, your school psychologist will fill in quite a bit more about testing results and comparisons to peers. But for what you're doing for an annual IEP, you don't have any new IQ tests or anything like that. So you're going to talk about the services they're receiving. Okay. The students that you're going to do for your case studies that you're actually going to write IEPs for are going to have a reading goal. So based on the evaluation, do they need services? Yes. You can talk about the reading strengths. And if you're talking about a 7th grader and he's reading, you know, most of his reading subtest scores are at the 4th grade level, but he's got one that's a 5th grade level. Well, that's a relative strength because it's better than his others, even though it's still below where he ought to be. And so you use the word, you know, a relative strength is, you know, in comparison to his other skills. You talk about what they need. And you'll get a lot from parents on this one. You know, every parent wants their child to be successful in school. They want them to be good readers. They want them to be able to do the work independently. And then current performance. Okay. You're going to have multiple measures for reading for current performance. For reading, and math is the next one. You're going to have multiple, let me scroll on down so you can see both, maybe if I can both come on. You know, they won't. Anyway, you need to have multiple measures and you need to have peer comparisons for all those measures. Do you know what CBMs are? And have any of you done CBMs with kids, the 1 minute timed readings? Okay, so that's a curriculum-based measurement. So on Ames Web, they have the peer comparisons for CBMs. So that would be one. State achievement tests have group comparisons for grade levels. Reading rate, you can get off of the CBM that they read this many words at the 4th grade level and they read this many words correctly at the 6th grade level. Then you need to look on the Ames Web to get that peer comparison again. And then another one that you can do that takes another 1 minute sample is a reading accuracy. And I don't want to confuse you. Let's see if I can say this so that it comes out right. When you're looking at mastery of a skill, we usually talk about 80% as being mastered. When they can perform it 80% of the time or with 80% accuracy, then they've mastered a skill. On reading accuracy, you want their reading accuracy to be 90%. Okay? So the way that you check the reading accuracy is you open up a science or a social studies textbook that's at their grade level, have them read for 1 minute, and it's a simple count the number of words they read, divide it by the number of total words, and that's the reading accuracy level. So when you're thinking about sending homework home for kids, it needs to be at the level that they can do that 90% accuracy on the reading. Okay, the other thing you can have on there is achievement test scores, like if they take, our kids take maths tests in high school and middle school. I don't know what other achievement test does it. You know, it used to be California Achievement Test. You know, anybody know of any other achievement tests that your kids take in school? Yeah, it just depends. It varies school by school. But you should have at least 3 measures and you know, shoot for 4 on your reading. And then this is where you're going to put your goals. And if we can get to it in time, I'm going to show you a sample of an IEP that's filled out so that you can see what it looks like. It's posted for you to look at. It says, I need to switch. It is called, can you see the Blackboard shell? Okay, I didn't think so. I thought when I switched, we'd lose it, but if you open up module 1, okay, I have to stop sharing and reshare. Okay, I'm in module 1, right? On discussion, on Blackboard. Go to the bottom and it's got, not here. It's on the IEP page, just 1 second. Let me go to assignments, sorry. IEP assignment. Towards the bottom, it says example case study in WebKids. That's a sample one. And we'll look at that later tonight if we have enough time. Okay? But that's one that you can use as a model. And then the one below it is the form, the WebKids form, that you're going to use to fill in with your partner. Okay? And above it are 4 students. There's a Bethany, who's a 4th grader with high incidence. Braden is gifted, high school. Jason is a 9th grader with high incidence disability. Kayla is a 4th grader with the gifted. So you're going to pick the level that you're teaching. So when you're thinking about your partner, think a little bit about what grade levels you guys teach. Okay? However, because your license goes pre-K-12 that you're going to get for high incidence disabilities, you're going to write goals for 3 levels. You're going to write a preschool goal, an elementary goal, and a high school goal for reading, and one for the content areas when we get ready to do the goals. And you can see examples of it on that example one that I have of where I want those goals. Just because right now you may be teaching high school, but if you're employed by a cooperative or a district and they have an emergency and they need you in some other place, then they're going to move you. That's their prerogative to do. And so you need to at least know what those kind of goals look like and have an idea of how to write them. So that's why it's there. Okay. Okay, let me go back to my notes here so I don't forget what I'm doing. Whoops. Instead of maximizing, I'm minimizing. I can read it. Okay, so that's kind of the parts of the IEP that you need to know about for right now. Are you totally befuddled too much? Okay, before you get graded, just to reassure you, okay, before you get graded on your IEP, you're going to turn it in with that background information filled out and the present levels of performance filled out. That's what to do in 2 weeks. And it's worth it's worth a whole stinking 1 point. Okay, it's due the 23rd, I think. Okay, I'm going to go through it and I'm going to tell you what's right about it, and I'm going to tell you what you need to change and how to improve it. Then you're going to get it back. You're going to add goals to it. Then you're going to resubmit it. And then I'm going to grade it again. Okay? So you have chances to correct it all. One of the things that I really need to, I look at the course evaluations that people fill out and try to make changes and improvements based on that. One of the things that I did not make very clear before was you can resubmit any assignment that is below a B to earn a B. If you have above a B, if you have above an 85%, because that's the bottom B, if you have above that, your grade stands as is, because that bottom B is what's required by grad school. But if you have below that B, you can redo it so that you can earn up to that B. But that B, 85%, is the highest that you can earn on something that's redone. Okay? And like on your IEP, there's a rubric that goes with it. And I'll grade you and you'll have the points on the IEP. If it's a resubmission, your rubric will show a lot higher score maybe than the 85%. Because if that was your first grade on it, that's what it would have been. That's what it stands for then. But the 85% is the highest you can do on a resubmit. Does that make sense? Okay. Nobody should come out of here with less than a B. I will work with you until you get that B. Even if it takes into August, you'll get that B. Okay? I'm serious. And it's not just that I want you to have the B for grad school. I want you to understand what this is about and why you're doing it the way you were doing it. Because IEPs have to be federally monitored and they have to be checked for compliance. And I don't want your IEPs to get thrown back and be out of compliance. So I want you to learn to do it the right way so that you don't ever have to worry about that. I also want your IEPs to be well written enough so that parents don't come back and gripe about what's the content of them. You know, I want to protect you and your professionalism as much as possible. Okay? So when I go through the IEPs, I'm pretty tough on them as far as very detailed, because I want you to do the best that you possibly can. Because if you practice it the best and learn it the best, then you'll stay out of trouble. I have never been through a due process hearing where parents have disagreed with services or what I have done. I have heard those are horrible experiences, and I don't want you guys to ever have to go through that either. So by keeping your paperwork correct and intact will help avoid a lot of that. And you know, the IEP, like when you're writing it with your partner, think about it. If I were a parent, how would I want this IEP written? Okay. So anyway, okay, we have enough time to talk about MTSS and IEPs. Are you familiar with MTSS at all? Does your school system have an MTSS in place where they do additional help for kids who are struggling before they recommend them for services?
Yes.
Good, good, good. You know, and MTSS is not part of special education. That multi-tiered system of support is a general education function. It's not a special education function. But because the special educators are the resident experts in those buildings for knowing the kinds of strategies and tools to use with students, they're going to come to you and ask you for help. So be prepared with a ready answer. I'm not sure right this minute, but I'll go look it up. Or I'll go check and get back to you tomorrow. You know, that was always my pat answer. Okay, so when you're talking about MTSS, and Kansas is the only state that calls it this MTSS. Every other state calls it response to intervention. You know, Kansas does strange things with labels. I have to tell you, when I first started teaching, I had my teaching license said it was for students with personal and social adjustment problems. Well, everybody outside of Kansas called them the Kansas pissants, but the other states all call them behavior disorder, emotionally disturbed. I mean, so, you know, Kansas just has their own way of labeling things, and so you just kind of go with the flow. Anyway, when you're talking about MTSS or you're talking about response to intervention, what it's supposed to do is to identify a subgroup of students who are at risk for academic success. And this is all from your materials on the web and in the book. The theory being that the earlier the intervention is to help those students, the more quickly they will become successful and be able to achieve at regular rates with their peers. An early intervention, this is really 80% of kids identified as they go into special ed were based on learning disabilities. And it was 80% boys to girls. But now, I mean, that was original, but now it's changing somewhat because general ed teachers are being better prepared and they're able to cope with more, they know more strategies to help students that have learning disabilities. And a lot of times those kids don't even get identified anymore. They don't get referred, which is kind of nice because teachers are able to do a better job in the classroom. So this multi-tiered structure that we have in place, it increases intensity of instruction for kids who are having trouble, and it becomes very explicit instruction. And they're getting instructed in, say, reading, say more longer, for a longer length of time, more often, instead of having, like phonics once a week or twice a week, they're having phonics daily, and they're getting it for 30 minutes in addition to what's going on in the regular classroom. So they have it for more time, and they're working in smaller groups when they're doing that. And those groups are fluid groups in that they're changing because it's skill-based instead of curriculum-based. Okay? And you're working with teachers that have more expertise. Okay, RTI uses a problem-solving approach. You look at what the kid's problem is and let's fix it. The old system, and you need to know a little bit about the old system, the old standardized system, partly because you guys are going to have to take the Praxis test for content when you have special education in order to get your full teaching license. And so some of the historical stuff is included in that test. And so I'm going to give you tidbits on it because I did the Praxis test just so I was current with it. Anyway, the old system called the standardized testing system was a deficit model. It said, this is the kid's IQ, this is where they're performing, that's that deficit of where they are. And let's say they had an IQ that was 100, which is absolutely average, right in the middle, and they're performing at the 75th percentile, which means they perform at better than 75% of the kids in the classroom. That meant that it doesn't matter how big that gap was, they couldn't get qualified. They couldn't get any help. So we had kids that fell through the crack all the time because it was all based on numbers. It was all based on a mathematical formula, and it wasn't based on student needs. And so the MTSS, or the response to intervention, is based strictly on student needs and solving problems of what skills they're missing. Much better system, much better. And you know, I've been around so long, I've done both, and MTSS is way better. So when we're talking about RTI, the response to intervention, and gifted is not federally mandated. Were you aware of that? when we talk about, well, like when Mrs. Firestein's going to talk about IDEA and Section 504 and some of those other laws that you're going to discuss in classes, gifted's not included in those. That's a Kansas law only. And it will, even when our money got really, really, really tight in education the last, I don't know, 10 years, whatever it was, it wasn't federally mandated. They could have eliminated gifted and saved quite a bit of money. But parents who have students who have been identified as gifted tend to be higher, have a higher education, more affluent, so they have a larger voice, and you know, knew how to contact state legislatures, and so things didn't get dropped. Which, you know, good or bad, I don't know, but that's the way it is. Okay. So when we're looking at RTI and gifted, you're still going to focus, instead of focusing on student deficit, you're going to focus on student strengths when we're talking about gifted kids. And usually students don't get identified unless they are almost in the genius category until like the end of second grade, beginning of third grade for gifted services. That's typically the age that happens. And you're looking at, you know, some of the things that they do for the students that are gifted is they do compacting of the curriculum, because they can learn the information so much quicker that you can compact it so that they can progress ahead. We had a young man here who, as a sixth grader, was taking chemistry 2 at the high school. You know, he went on to, well, when he was in high school, he was, other than, he had his high school diploma at the end of his sophomore year, but his parents said 14 is too young to leave home and go to college. So he kind of hung around. He did, and you know, internet was available. He did online classes. But this boy was an exception. He got his PhD when he was 21 from Oxford, and NASA paid for his education because they wanted his research. I mean, it just, you know, and he was so intelligent. He could not relate to people his own age. He had nothing in common with them, and he would have been horribly miserable going to college when he was, I mean, you know, he just didn't fit in. Anyway, when he got to his doctoral program, he did fit in, and he had a great time. And you know, now he works for NASA and is making way more than teachers do. Anyway, we're talking about RTI and gifted. You're going to rely on best practice, and throughout this course, everything that you do is going to be an evidence-based teaching strategy. Some of the strategies in your school districts might or might not be. So the strategies you're going to use for this course are going to come out of the textbook or off of the Blackboard course information. So your assignment in 2 weeks is to write the background for the IEP and the present levels of academic and functional performance. That's that current needs sections on the part where it was the strengths, the needs, and the current performance. So you're going to go through the entire IEP and write that section for each one of those. So we have time. I'm going to show you a sample, the one that's on the web that I did on Blackboard. Okay, this is one that I put up there. This is Brandy. She's a 7th grader, and she has high needs. And so she's a 7th grade girl who has a learning disability. And I'm going to let you read. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to read. Let me find my cursor. Read this. Is it big enough that you can see it okay? Just skim through it briefly. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready for me to move the page. I'm going to scroll a little bit. Okay. When you get to the information about the special education teacher, stop reading there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You ready for me to stop sharing for a minute? Have you got that far? Okay. I can't see everybody when I share my screen. I can only see 2 or 3 people. It's like, oh no. Okay. So what can you tell me about Brandy? Kimberly, tell me one strength that Brandy has.
That she comprehends what she's reading. They said
She
she
comprehends
did.
what she's reading? Okay. Somebody, Diana, give me another strength.
She's well liked by her peers.
Yes. Carly?
She works really hard at what she's doing. Like she's paying attention to what she needs to be, what needs to be done.
Yeah. Jared, can you add anything to that?
I was actually just gonna say what Carly just did about how she's, is working hard and stuff, but just still struggling behind a little bit with the learning disability.
Yeah, I would agree. So think about if you were her teacher, what kinds of things would you think about she might need in order to be successful? So Billy Joe, can you relate to that? Can you turn up your
I guess off
microphone?
the top of my head, I would say, is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. I would just say she identifies herself that she struggles with reading, and the teachers know that also. So maybe she would have alone time, one-on-one time reading with someone to help her instead of like reading during class with the other kids.
Yeah.
Is that what you wanted? Okay.
Yes, it is. You're good. You're right on track. Okay. Is it Linda? Do I say Linda or you on? Turn on your microphone, okay? Okay.
I think the most important.
Okay, can you turn up your volume, please, on your speaker? If you go, do you know how to do that?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Let's see if I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit. Okay, let's see. What would you think she might need to be successful?
I think the most important.
I can't hear you, no. Take your headphones back out and go take your cursor on the bottom side of your Zoom page and click beside your microphone and see if you can the top one says select a microphone. Make sure it's the top one is on your computer.
Yeah.
Okay, now try it. Okay, plan B. At the bottom of your screen, there's a little button that says chat. You see it when you run your cursor along the bottom? By your microphone, go about halfway across the page, it says chat. Click on chat, and you can type your answer. Okay? Okay, while she's doing that, Sarah, have I called on you?
You say Sarah?
I did. Sorry. What would you add?
The only thing I can think of would be pull out time to work on reading one-on-one. That's the only thing and that's already been mentioned, so.
That's okay. Does anybody disagree with pull out time for reading one-on-one?
I would say maybe chunk the reading sections for her initially, give her a visual where she can just maybe focus on parts instead of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And she could, maybe work through it that way. And I thought it was really good that she was able to understand when she was becoming frustrated and give herself a break and then come back.
Yeah, I think that's a very important part of what makes her so successful is that she recognizes when she's getting frustrated. Because there's no point in beating your head against the wall when you're so frustrated you can't think.
Mm-hmm.
And then nothing soaks in.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that, well, Haley, do you have can you think of something different?
Well, I was just thinking, with her confidence level, because it said something about not wanting to pull out the books in front of peers. A lot of times finding somebody that she can read with to build that confidence also helps, instead of just having that one-on-one time, where she gets used to reading with somebody that's higher. She needs to be build confidence within peers with reading.
Well, and sometimes I think kids don't realize how many struggles a lot of kids have with reading.
Exactly. Right.
They think they're the only one that can't read fluently, and so they're so hesitant. But when they partner, and you could do peer tutoring, or you could do peer buddying. There's all kinds of options there. Yeah, good.
Right.
Does anybody else, Janice, do you have anything to add?
Organization, help her be more, organized.
How would you do that?
She has assignments and so on, so that she doesn't wait until the last minute.
How would you go about working with that?
Have a planner for her, and then possibly use color coding for it, so that she knows that maybe you could do color coding, like Monday is a blue day. So everything color coded in blue would be due on Monday. Everything on Tuesday would be color coded in red. So she knows that is due. And that would be sent home to her parents so that they could look at it, and then they could sign off on it every night to say that they have looked at it.
And how many of you work with fourth grade and up? How many of those kids have cell phones?
Just about all of them.
About all of them. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Those calendars that are in cell phones. I try, and I'm not belittling your recommendation, Janice, because I think it's a really good idea. But kids that are unorganized tend to lose their planners, but they never lose their cell phones. And those cell phones have a calendar in them, and you can color code your calendar in your cell phone. So the color coding is a great idea, but I think putting it in the cell phone, because they always have their cell phone with them. And in almost all schools now, kids can have their cell phones in the classroom because they're using them as learning tools, because they have to download the apps like Kahoot! And I can't remember some. Anyway, that's the first one that came to mind. But they're downloading apps that they can use. And the fancy calculators in there. Cell phones have scientific calculators in them. And so I would, instead of doing the planner, I would go straight to the phone, because she'll always have her phone with her. And I would monitor that she actually gets it written down and color coded correctly till she gets used to the system. And for some kids that might take a week, and for some it might take the rest of their life. That's just the way kids are. Tori, do you have something? Or Tina, I'm sorry.
Yes, I was just going to say that sometimes it might even help if you can find out what the difficulty is that she's having. There's color-coded strips that she can lay on there to follow, like guideline strips, and they're color-coded. So sometimes when the kids are reading, I know we had some kids that were, the fluorescent lighting was irritating them, and they couldn't handle reading. The glare was shining off the pages. So if you could find something that would even help her with that. A lot of times there's things that we can try and they improve it, and then they're like, wow, I didn't know it was something as little as that. I mean, it may not be that, but that would actually, give us a more idea of what we need to work at.
Knowing her self-esteem, that she doesn't want to look different, she's probably not going to do that in the classroom in front of her peers. She might do it during pull-out time in the resource room, and she might use it at home. But I would doubt, as hard-headed as she is, that she's going to use it in the classroom.
Well, we've actually had a whole basket, and we would walk around and give the whole class. They had the option.
Then she's not different.
Exactly.
Because,
that way, everybody had a choice.
In 7th grade is when little girls are changing so much, and peer pressure and peer acceptance is everything to them. More so than academic success a lot of times. And so not wanting to be different. So thinking about the testing, when you think about the testing that she doesn't want to go out of the classroom for testing, but her scores would probably improve if she did. Think about an accommodation that you might be able to use for that. Anybody? Tina, you have an idea?
I was thinking maybe just like headsets for everybody. That way she could hear it being read to her, like the questions or whatever after they read. This is a hard one.
I have an idea. Okay, Tina Clausen.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know.
That's okay. This is just a brainstorming, so you don't have to know. But see how many different ideas we're coming up with because we're teaming and we're working together on it. So when you're doing an IEP, granted the special ed teacher is probably going to do the bulk of the writing of it, but when it comes to accommodations, the things that, and some teachers will say, absolutely no headsets in my classroom because kids end up listening to music instead of doing what they're supposed to do. Or absolutely no iPads because they're gaming instead of, So you have to adjust to each teacher somewhat. But you can still come up with accommodations when you work together. So one of the accommodations I was thinking of for the testing, and I have done this with kids, they take the regular test in the classroom, not read to them, just like everybody else, so they don't look different. They just take it when everybody else does. The next time they come to the resource room, they retake that same test with it being read out loud, and then the teacher averages the 2 grades. Now, granted, would they get a higher grade if only the second time was used as their grade? Yes, but I think there has to be some accountability in there. If you choose to not use the services offered, this is a choice you make. Sometimes parents balk at that a little bit. And I have had teachers that have said, I know it says in the IEP we're going to average these, but I'm just not going to do that. And they give her the highest grade regardless. But that's the teacher's choice. I mean, but that allows for some accountability and some true learning on her part of accepting and being able to explain her disability. Right, so that's something they could consider. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of information. I'm just going to kind of go through, because there's more on that case study. When Brandy read aloud from her 7th grade social studies textbook, her reading accuracy was 74%. Is that high enough to do reading or social studies assignments at home without help? Is that where that peer buddy or peer tutoring would come in, or writing the assignments down like in her phone and color coding it so that her parents knew? Because you want it to be 90% if it's something that they're going to do independently. One of the tricks that you can do in every textbook that I've ever used, if you start at the end of the chapter and you read the questions and the vocabulary words, that tells you the important parts. And so then you go, as you're reading, you go through and you're looking for my clock's going to ding just a minute. So as you're going through the book, then you know what to look for that's important. I even went through, when we were still using paper textbooks, Now we're using mostly electronic books.
Mhm.
But, and it could be done on electronic books. Don't get me wrong. I just did, it was my era, okay? I went through, we had it, because I got to keep copies of the textbooks in my resource room. I went through each of the textbooks and I highlighted the important parts out of each section so that kids could get the idea of looking for the important things and recognizing them, just to teach them that skill. So that's something that you can do too. Like when you're reading an electronic book, all those electronic books you can highlight on,
Mhm.
you know, and so they, well, this is a really important part. This answers this question that's at the end of the section. So let's highlight this. That way it's easier to study. And, you know, the bold-faced words, the vocabulary words, those are all identified for them. So, you know, pre-teach vocabulary, like go through those chapters. And the first year that you're doing all of this, you can't get it all done. I mean, it's almost impossible. You don't have enough hours in the day to do everything that you could possibly get done. But if you pre-teach vocabulary, if you go through the book, instead of answering all the questions, if you go through the book and you show them, these are the important words, and you talk about what they are and compare it to something that they know, because prior knowledge, anything that you build on prior knowledge is something they can relate to. So if you're talking about dams in Southeast Asia or something, and you talk about like Tuttle Creek Dam, and if she's in the Manhattan area, so that she knows what the purpose of the dam is and what they kind of look like, so that she can relate it, and then she gets new learning. If you can do that before she's discussing those sections in class, she'll get way more information out of the classroom discussions. So that pre-teaching vocabulary is a really good thing to do. When Brandy reads, she reads on a CBM, she reads 78 words in 1 minute on a 5th grade level. I don't think I read that right, but we'll go with it. So a 5th grader should read between 150 and 171 words. So her reading rate is way slow. And somebody said something a while ago about listening to the books, listening to stuff. Electronic books, if you have electronic books in your school, you probably have iPads or tablets or Chromebooks or something that's downloaded on. So you can plug in an earphone and let it. I do not furnish headphones and earphones for kids because they end up walking away. Kids all have their own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and especially earbuds. I don't want to stick something in my ear that's in somebody else's ear. I'm sorry, that's gross. Anyway, so, but, you know, she can put it in, and a lot of times teachers, when they give reading assignments, will let kids listen to music on their iPads with earphones. Well, nobody's going to know that she's listening to what's being read as opposed to listening to music. So she's not going to look different. So doing some of that face saving for her will make her much more willing to participate and to do what she needs to do. I'm trying to think what else I have on here. The organization, would you create a goal for organization, Janice?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Because I
okay.
think that has been a problem throughout her education.
Yeah, I think you're right. I would too. On the IEP, there's no good place to put an organization goal. There's not a place that says organization. There's content areas. There's reading, math, communication, motor, hearing, vision, and health. There's nothing for organization. So you have some choices. And depending on how your district or your cooperative does it is where you're going to put an organizational goal. If you read the, if you read the Kansas Social Emotional Character Development Standards, the SECD standards, have you heard of those? You know, there's math standards and reading standards that the state has. Okay, well, there's SECD standards also, Social Emotional Character Development Standards. And in those, there's some discussion on organization. You know, so you could put that, because it's on the SECD standards, you could put organizational skills under social emotional on the IEP. You could put a goal there and make sure that it's very plain that it's not a behavior goal, that it's a social emotional goal. I mean, that it's an organizational goal. Or the other place is on transition. If it's a student that's 14 or older, you have to fill out transition. which is going to hit 8th grade, maybe not 7th. So if it's a 7th grader, you might have to put it in social emotional. But if it's an 8th grader and up that's 14, you could put it in transition. And the reason for that being, when you're looking at their transition to what comes next after high school, whether it's job or continued education, they have organizational skills are a big part of success for that. So that's why you can put it there. So on your IEPs that you're going to write, you can put it either place you want to put it. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to see if I can, we have 15 minutes, yes. Do you guys have any questions? I feel like I just zoomed through this. I literally did, but I went too fast.
I do have one on the dates where you said you could have the multiple dates of.
That initiation date? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Would that be so you could avoid an amendment later? Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, another reason that you might do that is, trying to think, you can, if, when we have kids like, because an IEP is good for 1 calendar year. If you write it in November, it's good until the next November. Okay? 1 calendar year is 365 days exactly. So if you write your IEP November the 11th, it's good until November the 10th the following year. So November 11th, you got to have a new one. All right. Anyway, if I have a kiddo that's a sophomore and we're going to put him on work study during his junior year, we're not going to implement work study until August. So that part would be implemented in August, but the rest of the IEP would be implemented that November the 10th date. Okay, I'm gonna go by, I don't know if your pictures of who you see are in the same order of the pictures I see. So in my top row, I have Tina Dory, myself, Cherie, and Janice. Does everybody else's pictures look like that? No. Okay, never mind. That won't work. Tina Dory, what grade levels do you want to work with for this IEP?
6th, 7th.
Okay, there's an IEP for a 4th grader or 9th grader?
4th grader.
Okay. Cherie.
Probably 4th grade because I'm going to do 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay, can I put you two together?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, let me get my page set up here since I'm going to try and do this. Okay, so you two, I'll put you in as one partner group. Okay. And so you're going to do Bethany, is the IEP or the case study that you're going to do. Okay, the next person I have is Janice. What grade level do you want to do?
I would have to do 4th grade too.
Okay, and Kimberly, what grade are you?
I would be 4th grade too.
Pardon me?
4th grade.
So is it okay to put you with Janice?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, Haley?
4.
Almost everybody.
I'm flexible. I will be doing 4th next year, but I'm flexible. I don't mind either way.
Okay. Lisa? Lisa Hartley?
Sorry, my connection isn't very good right now.
Oh, okay. We can hear you fine.
But I would teach 9th grade.
Okay, so you need to do.
Sorry, my connection's bad.
It's okay. I'm trying to remember the 9th grade boy's name. It's a boy. Casey. Diana?
Yes, I'm 4th.
Okay, can I put you with Haley?
Yeah.
Okay. Carly?
I'm 9th grade.
Can I put you with Lisa?
Mm-hmm.
Michaela? Did I say that right?
Yeah. I do 9th grade.
Okay. Sarah?
I would be 9th also.
Can I put you two together?
Yes.
Okay. Tina Clausen?
I would do 9th.
Okay. Jared?
I will be teaching K through 6, but I'm open to anything as well.
Probably want to do 4th, though. It would be more appropriate for you, okay?
Okay.
Billy Joe?
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'll be teaching middle school. So
So 4th with, can I put you with
Okay.
Janet? Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Jan?
I
4th?
will be middle school.
4th?
Okay.
Okay, so 4th, you want to do the 9th grade? Because that's kind of middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th, that's close. Or would you rather do 4th?
4th.
Okay. Okay, is it Jan? Am I saying that right? Okay. Nicole?
I will be teaching 9th through 12th grade or 21 years of age.
Okay, so I'll put you with Tina Clausen. Is that all right?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, that's everybody that I have. And Jan, somebody that from class is not here tonight, and I'll put them with you, whoever it is. Okay? I'll look at my emails. It's like I don't remember the name right this off the top of my head, but I'll put you two together. So I'll sign you up when you go on to. Okay, let me shrink this down to show you what I want to show you on Blackboard. Oh, I'm going to show you something else too. In an effort to try to do what's best, sometimes my best doesn't always work out real good. But anyway, this was my idea. Today I went in and I went on assignments. I thought I did it on this one. On quizzes. I didn't do this class. I didn't do your class. Let me show you a different one real quick. That's wrong one. That's not my class. This is this one. Look at all this class stuff I have to figure out. Let's try this one. Okay, I went on assignments. Am I still sharing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. It did just say quizzes. Now it says quizzes and study guides. And then open it, and at the very, some of them at the bottom, it might be at the top on this one, study guides for your quizzes. I put study guides in here. Okay, and I'll just open one so you can see what it looks like. They're not whiz-bang study guides. They are just, can you see a Word document, or is it still showing Blackboard?
Still showing Blackboard.
Okay. When you change stuff, it doesn't change as fast as I want it to change. Okay, now can you see a study guide?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just went through and the topics that the questions are over, I just kind of listed them. So when you're reading, you have an idea of what to kind of focus on. Okay, I will tell you that they're pretty detailed. So if you don't feel bad if you need to have it reset and do it over, okay? Because you know it's detailed. It's just like taking your kids with the new teacher. The first 6 weeks of school during the school year, they have to get used to the teacher's ways and the rules and stuff. It's the same with these quizzes. It's just getting used to it, and they're detailed because they're written kind of like the praxis questions are. So that's the reason, and it's timed. It's 90 minutes because the praxis is timed. It's 120 questions in 2 hours. So that's not right. 120 questions in 4 hours. I think is what the praxis is. I know it's 120 questions because I did all 120 of them. So, you know, so it's just for practice. I mean, you're going to get a grade on it, but you can, if you don't do as well as you want to the first time, you can work up to that B. So don't panic about it. If you don't get 26 out of 30, then you need to email me and ask me if I'll reset it. Okay? And we can do that as many times as you need to. Okay? So, and sometimes, who was that? Tina, who was having trouble with it? Billy Joe, you were having trouble with the internet, or somebody? It'll
I
blip
was.
out on.
I was having trouble with the internet.
Okay. Sometimes if you're having trouble with the internet, those quizzes will blip out on you and you're not done with it. And if you've it'll show up as a 0 score. Don't panic because I don't count those against you. I'll reset it and you can take it like it was the first time. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So don't panic about that. If you get to the end and you're at the 90 minutes and you haven't answered all the questions, that's just going to tell you that you need to speed up a little bit and we can reset it. Okay? Because you need to learn the information. It's important stuff to know. It's the stuff that's going to keep you out of lawsuits and due process hearings and, having your IEPs thrown back at you because they don't meet federal mandates. So it is important stuff to know. Okay. Okay, so are there any questions right now?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I don't want to be that person that's like, hey, can we switch groups? But Michaela and I actually live really close together, and my nephew and her son actually play on the same baseball team. Can we be partnered up by chance? I'm sorry.
Michaela's doing 9, right?
Yeah, so am I.
Okay, I can switch.
If that's okay with everyone.
Is that okay with Nicole?
Yeah, that's okay with me.
Okay, so I'm going to put Nicole with Sarah, right? And I'm going to put Michaela with Tina.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And we can pick either of the 2 ninth graders?
No, you're going to pick, there's 2 ninth graders, but one of them's gifted and one of them's learning disabled. You're going to pick the LD one, unless you're in the gifted program.
Okay.
Okay. Braden, I think is his name. Okay. The coursework overlaps for the people in the gifted program as opposed to the high incidence program that you guys are in. And so this class is set up so that both of you guys can take it because of the legal mandate that fit both courses and program outcomes. Okay. So any questions from anybody?
Yes. Can you tell us exactly what parts of the IEP that we have to have done on the 23rd again?
Yes, I can, and I'll actually show you maybe if I didn't close it. Okay, you're going to read the case study, which is what this top thing is that I've got. Oh, I said I was going to show you and then I didn't share, sorry. So you're going to read the case study. You're going to do, they call this the demographic information right here. You're going to fill in the names and their positions, just like this sample. You're going to fill in the hearing, vision, and health. You're going to fill in the motor, social emotional, and I just want the needs, the current performance, and if there's any impact. I don't want you to mess with these check boxes yet at this point, okay, on any of the sections, okay? You're going to do communication. You're going to do basically, this is called the present levels of academic and functional performance. You're actually doing all of that. In the old IEPs, they were all lumped together, but on the new ones, they're spread out. You're going to do communication, general intelligence. You're going to talk about the reading, but you're not going to do goals yet, okay? You're going to talk about math, and you're not going to do goals, and you're not going to do accommodations yet. You're going to do the same thing on written language. And if you think the student that you have needs organizational skill, you could, and if it's a ninth grader, you could do it. You could talk about the organization and the transition. Okay, and you stop there. So on the sample that you're going to do for the first submit for your first thing in 2 weeks, you're not going to put anything in any of these check boxes. You're going to leave them blank, just like this one is. You're going to leave them blank, and you're not going to put goals. Okay. The part that those check boxes and the goals come later on future assignments. Did that answer your question, Janice?
Yes, thank you.
Is that clear as mud, or is it okay?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Okay. This one's uploaded on that example case study, so you can look at it. Okay. Any other questions?
I do have a question. On the chapters that we need to read, I have the 7th edition, and I know that you said the editions don't matter, but sometimes the chapters are in a different spot in a different edition. So can you give us the titles of the chapters, maybe 1 through 4? So I'm reading the right chapters?
That would make sense. Chapter 1 is creative response to learning environments. 2 is planning and organizing instruction. 3 is assessing students for instruction, and 4 is teaching students and managing instruction. Are yours in that order?
Yep, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
There's an older version that doesn't have a reading chapter in it, the same as the newer version does, but I think 7 has the reading chapter. But when we get to that part of it, we'll go through it, okay? Just to make sure. Good question, Nicole. Anybody else have any questions?
Dr. Brooks, can you let me know who my partner is again? I didn't hear, it didn't come through on my end. Lisa Hartley.
Carly. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Lisa Carly? Okay.
Right. Oh, I was going to show you real quick. Ooh, we got run out of time. We're past run out of time. If you go to course, let me show you what I'm talking about. I just start doing stuff and you guys can't see what the heck I'm doing. It really aggravates me when I forget. Okay, if you go to course tools, I think it is. There's a place that says email.
Okay.
Okay, somewhere in there. If you go down far enough, my goodness sakes. And my view looks different than your view.
I think I was on the right-hand side. It said send email. Would that be it? Or is that
would be it, I think, but I'm not seeing it. Anyway.
A bit more, right there at the very bottom?
Yeah.
It's a roster. Yeah, is that it?
Should be. Okay, and then it goes to everybody in class, a group, like you've seen it, or you can pick, like, if you scroll down, like you can select users. So you can pick the person. Is it still sharing?
Yes.
Like you can see, okay, you can pick the person that's in your group.
Oh, great.
Like you can pick them and you have to move them over, okay, by clicking the little arrow, and then you can type in your comment, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. If you get stuck, send me an email and I'll help you go through it. Okay?
All right.
Okay. I'm going to ask everybody to log off for just a second so I can start recording the first, or stop, so I can translate the first Zoom session before we start the second one. So you guys that have just logged on for the Zoom that starts at 6:30, would you log off, give me 2 minutes, and then log back on, please? Thank you. Okay, any questions from the VC group?
Yeah, I was actually logged on early, and I'm supposed to be on the 6:30 one.
Oh, no.
Oh,
and now
so
I'm a partner with someone in this group.
Somebody out of this group. That's not gonna work for you and Sarah to work together because I can't do grades across groups.
Sorry, I just realized what I did.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through and whoever doesn't have a partner, I'll do an adjustment on there, and I'll put, I'll send you an email to the ones that are affected. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna end this. Sheree, do you have a question?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna end this session for everybody. So everybody's gonna have to log back on in just 1 minute so I can get this one to transcribe. Okay? Thank you. See you all next week.